Welcome to Reshair on ESPN 730. For the next hour, your host, Chris Reshaar, will bring fresh air to your financial needs. Excite, educate, and empower you to make sound financial decisions. Chris is a seasoned licensed mortgage consultant with Movement Mortgage, equal housing lender, originator license number 117266. Now, here's your host, Chris Reshaar.
Welcome to Reshair Radio. I'm your host, Chris Reshaar. We are back for another week of Reshair. Hopefully you've listened before and you've appreciated what we've brought to you each and every week. If you listen to the intro really is about exciting and empowering Charlotteans to make sound financial decisions. And really that can incorporate all kinds of things. We have people that come on the show on a regular basis as expert contributors and area specialists in their profession to make the show well-rounded. And we do that when we bring these guests in and we talk about hot topics in the marketplace. We talk about real estate and housing and mortgage and credit and finance and insurance and you name it. We've got a whole range of topics and people that come in. So I'm really excited about our show for the week. We've got a couple of expert contributors and guests on the show. First of all, I'd like to sort of introduce our expert contributor, Adam Kunda with National Credit Care. Adam, welcome back to the show.
Oh, thank you, Chris, so much.
I know we've got you all the way in from beautiful Denver here, dialing in for our show this week. So how are things out in Denver?
It's a beautiful day. The sun's just creeping up from the east, and obviously wish I could be there in the studio with you, but thanks for having me, Chris.
Glad to have you. So before we sort of get into our topic related to credit today with you working with National Credit Care, why don't you tell us a little bit about you, how you got into this industry, and then maybe we'll hit a little bit about what National Credit Care does. But give our listeners just a little perspective on who you are, Adam.
For sure. So I was doing sales for a long time out of Davidson, North Carolina, for a company. And after about 6 years of doing that, I wasn't really being fulfilled as a salesperson. So as an economics major and a business major from the University of Massachusetts, I wanted to draw upon that knowledge and find something that would be a little bit better fit for me and myself and how I just like to care and nurture people. So I found a great company here in Colorado. National Credit Care is who I represent currently. And we're really helping clients get into home loans, and the benefit that we're seeing on not just the client side, but the lender side, the real estate agent, and just my gratitude. I'm really enjoying working with these clients. So after about 6.5 years now working with these clients, we've seen typically about 40 to 42% of the people get converted back into a home loan. So that's obviously, my goal in working with you and your clients, Chris, is to get them cleaned up, get them coached and educated on the things that they can be doing, and also the things that we can be doing to assist them to get to that goal.
Perfect. So just in general, you've given a little background on yourself and kind of how you got to National Credit Care. Why don't you just tell us some of the things that National Credit Care offers so that if our customer does hear something that may be of interest to them and maybe they don't have perfect credit or don't have any credit at all, they know how to kind of get in connection with you and a little bit about what National Credit Care does.
Oh, sure. Thank you, Chris. So, two parts of repair, I think, are what should be focused on. Repair typically looks at the negative elements that the client has maybe missed in the past, a late payment or a collection on the report. And those things can be repaired. I'm not going to say that every item that's on a report can be fixed. Over time, sure it can, but our goal is to kind of just speed up the process with getting these items alleviated. We have stuff that's not showing up on a report or stuff that is showing up on a report that's not the client's, like juniors and seniors information crossing over on reports, or paid off collections that are not showing that the balance was ever paid on the report. Tax lien, same thing, client pays a tax lien, it's not updated. So one of the biggest things we like to do, Chris, is to just start with a scrub of the report and make sure that we're getting all of the negative items that are not accurate per the Fair Credit Reporting Act removed from that report, so we can see some scores come up from a repair standpoint. But the other factor, and working with me, we want to always help the client on positive credit, and that's the biggest thing that's going to separate me and my company from any other firm that you can get mixed up with, because we understand the algorithm. We understand the mathematical formula that is computing the actual credit score, and it's an individual approach. As we're taking in a client, we're coming up with what prescription would best fit them. As this algorithm is asking for inputs, we want to be making sure that they're adding those to the report to boost the score from the positive standpoint.
It's funny because I have clients, Adam, that when I'm looking at their credit, they say, well, if I remove that collection, how many points will my score go up? And then I go, well, yeah, I'd love to be able to give you that answer, but this is like credit scoring is a mathematical algorithm, and my brain doesn't compute like that, right? And so, but people expect me to know as a mortgage professional, what's going to happen to their credit. And that's typically when I say, you know what, you need to talk to my buddy Adam and his team over at National Credit Care, because my nickname may be the Mortgage Genius, and that may be my website, but I'm not the credit genius the last time I looked.
And I'm not the mortgage genius either. That's why you and I make a great team.
Exactly.
But no, you're totally right. This is a very complex situation. I mean, FICO's been around since 1970s doing credit scoring. Lots of changes come out. I mean, even in November, we had a slight change to the algorithm. So as the general public doesn't typically keep up with the knowledge, it's something that we're on top of and can always keep up with these changes and make sure that our prescriptions are really the best fit for that client with the current situations we have with credit scoring.
Perfect. Before we sort of roll into our topic again about helping people establish credit, let's talk just briefly so that our listeners that may need your services at this point, soon or sometime in the future, a little bit about how it works. And it's my understanding that if we have a Reshair Radio listener that you guys you'll do a free evaluation of their credit report. So there's no obligation to at least have them take a look. Is that right?
That's totally correct. So the obligation is really just give us a call. Let's talk about this because a lot of people think the hill is a lot steeper than it actually is. So once we can get a look at this and explain to them actually what's in front of them, how long it's going to take, how much it's going to cost, then they might have a little bit, better feeling about what they can achieve in this. And we do need a client on board. That is very important. So yeah, just calling, going through the report with us, talking about what your expectations are and time frame. We're going to be doing that with the client. So everybody does get that specialized treatment. And you are right. Reshared listeners do get a discount off of my enrollment fee. So if at the time of our consultation being completed, if the client is looking to move forward with the process, we take a $189 enrollment down to just $89 for Reshair listeners. So that's the benefit that we're offering.
We'll take that. So, and Adam, real quick, what would be the best number for them to reach you?
Sure. You can call me directly on my cell phone, which would be 720-556-1959. If you do just want to call my office as well, it is toll-free at 866-595-6313. And I'm always somewhere. So either on the cell phone or the office, you'll be able to find me.
All right. Let's jump into our topic. We got about 5 minutes before we got to take a quick break. So I really wanted, Adam, you to share some counsel around people who maybe have limited credit, meaning they just don't have a lot of credit cards or installment debt and or don't have any, and maybe what they would need to do to get credit established and sort of what's important to get on the credit report to get a score.
Sure. The most important thing is a credit card or a revolving account. You did mention a client may have one or two, but if they don't have any, it's very important to have one of those on the report that is showing on all three bureaus. So typically when I'm working with a client, I'm going to be directing them to a revolving credit card that is showing up on all three credit bureaus so that they are getting the benefit. Not all creditors are obligated to report to all three bureaus. So if you're dealing with a federal credit union, you might only see that revolving account give you credit on one or two bureaus versus, Bank of America might be sending that information to all three. So, the credit card is
that's
most
really
important.
That's an important point because, when we go to get that mortgage loan, we need 3 scores to be reporting, not just 1 or 2.
Correct.
So,
and if they don't show that on the one bureau, they're missing about a 30% chunk of their credit score of the bureau that wouldn't be receiving that information. So that's obviously a huge chunk.
Perfect. What about installment debt? Do they need to have that as well?
It is important. It's not going to be the most robust part of a credit score. It's more what I would say would push a ceiling up on a credit score. A lot of people always say, hey, I can't get my credit score any higher than a 745 or a 765. How do we do that? And that does just come to adding different elements of positive credit. So an auto loan, a mortgage, all these things that we are trying to add to our reports on a daily basis, if they're paid on time, they're going to elevate our credit scoring ceiling and allow us to achieve that 800, that everybody's obviously looking for out there. So
sure. The ironic part is I often see where, especially the young millennial generation, they have plenty of student loans, but they've stayed away from the credit card, ironically, and then they don't have a good credit score, even though their installment debt is either deferred or paid on time, and they don't understand why their credit score isn't 750. And that value of having that credit card, even though it sounds dangerous and mom and grandpa said it was the devil, don't get that credit card. it really can make a big difference in that client's credit score, even just having one open and active credit card.
One open and active. Again, it's 30% is the actual number behind that. So if you do not have that, you're missing that 30%. So, let me take a second too, Chris. I think one of the biggest things, and it just comes up in conversation with friends and family and business relationships. I think a lot of people tend to not get involved with credit repair, just things they've heard on the street. And I do like to stress that we are, an honest company. We are licensed and bonded by the state of North Carolina to do our business. And you and I have partnered for a long time. So if you are out there and you just want to talk, it's not going to charge any money to just see what's going on. And realistically, that is going to be the make or break here. You don't need thousands of dollars to fix credit. You just need some guidance and an expert, to be on your team to guide you through this large algorithm that we're talking about. So, if you are out there and need help, definitely give us a call.
Adam, and I really appreciate you sharing that. Sometimes I actually have clients that come to me and they're actually sometimes working with your competitors. And I remind them that, we have a relationship where if you help my client gets to buy a home, and I therefore want to send you another client so that I have another client who buys a home, right? We have a relationship where we get to help somebody, create that American dream. And sometimes they'll maybe go to some consumer direct company that may not, they're not worried about getting that next referral and taking care of my customer to convert them into a home. And they sort of drag out that process. And sometimes it feels like they just want to collect a monthly fee from them for years. And maybe things aren't really happening. So one of the things about the relationship that I have that I like with your firm, and I have other firms that I've worked with over the years, is that when you work directly with mortgage professionals, I know that you're really working hard to get my customer cleaned up, get the duplications off there, help them establish credit, and get them back to us as soon as possible so they're not dragging out 2 years into the program and not being able to achieve that home ownership. So, perfect. Well, I appreciate you being on our show today. Adam, real quick, if you could just give us your phone number one more time for our listeners, and then we're going to take a quick break.
When choosing an insurance agency, you want a company you can trust. We are an independent insurance agency that can protect your personal assets, including your home, your business assets, as well as health and insurance needs. A true one-stop solution provider. We do not work for an insurance company. We work for you. As an independent insurance agency, our duty is to our clients' best interests. It is our responsibility to provide you the best service and the best coverage at the best possible price. You will have the added benefit of working with agents who understand your needs. After visiting our website, we will schedule an exploratory appointment to discuss your specific needs. Please visit our website at www.movementinsurance.com. That's www.movementinsurance.com.
Sure. Yeah, guys, it's 720-556-1959. My name is Adam Kunda. I'm the Regional Director at National Credit Care. I'd be more than happy to help you out.
Adam, you've been great again. We'll have you on the show next month, but for our listeners, please stay tuned. We've got a lot more show coming right back. We'll be right back. Hey, Chris Reshatar here from Reshair Radio with Movement Mortgage. Are you still sitting on a high interest rate mortgage loan? Are you thinking about consolidating, paying off some of those credit card debts, or maybe doing some home improvement? Now's the time to call because interest rates are still at a 40-year low. My number is 704-277-4463. That's 704-277-4463. I can also be found at themortgagegenius.com. Movement Mortgage is an equal housing lender and MLS license number 117266. Welcome back to Reshair Radio. I'm your show host, Chris Reshatar, licensed loan officer with Movement Mortgage. Got to get my criticals in every once in a while. I am NMLS license number 117266, and Movement Mortgage is an equal housing lender. So if you were just tuning into our previous segment, we've had Adam Kunda with National Credit Care talking about his services and how he can help people clean up their credit a little bit. But more importantly, he was talking about how to establish credit and so forth. And Adam is an expert contributor on the show. We're glad to have him on the show each and every month. But what I'd like to do now is sort of turn our focus over to our guest in the studio here this morning, Lisa Hughes-Skipper with the Lisa Hughes Group. Did I get it right, Lisa?
You got it.
Y'all folks, she got married on us really recently here. Changed her name, so we've been working together for a number of years, and I'm still trying to get the name down. But anyway, Lisa, welcome back. I know you've been on Reshair Radio before in the past. and wanted to really have you back in the studio again to really talk about what's going on in our real estate market. But before we do that, let's sort of recap and help our listeners understand a little bit about who you are as a real estate agent and a little bit about how you got into the business, et cetera. So I understand you've got about 17 years in the business. Yes?
That's correct.
That's amazing. And licensed North and South Carolina.
That's correct.
We're kind of a border state here, Charlotte, border town. So she does cover both areas. So Lisa, with all your years of experience, I really want to know, or I want our listeners to know a little bit about how you got started in real estate.
Well, I am actually one of the few natives of Charlotte. Seems
Wait
like
a second.
everybody else has moved here, but I'm from here.
We are recording that, so one of the few. Go ahead.
I had been in social work for many years and decided that I was ready. I loved what I did, loved helping people, but I was ready to kind of do something different. And this just seemed to be a really good fit because I still get to help people. I'm just helping them with something that's fun and exciting and the single largest investment that any of us ever make in our lives. And I was a business major, so it just seemed like with a minor in economics, and it just seemed like a good transition background. And so I still get to help people and love what I do.
That's great. Welcome to the show. And I'm glad you shared that because I was just thinking back to the days when I went to see my guidance counselor and you would take those little career inventories. And I'm wondering, I'd like to meet the first realtor that actually checked that box that they wanted to be a realtor when they were, I don't know that
anybody does that.
Exactly. And checked that in high school and actually became a realtor because I don't know anyone that started out as a realtor, really. It's a hard thing to find. Usually everyone's sort of started in another field and then sort of gravitated. And much like me, although I'm not a realtor, I'm a licensed loan officer in multiple states. I was sort of, my wife and I were sort of gravitating toward the real estate industry. We were intrigued by houses and new construction and design and build and just sort of landed here in mortgage eventually after my career being a counselor, much like being a social worker. I had a career working for CMS and enjoyed that time and enjoyed working with the students, but ended up landing here, and it's been a great experience. So, all right. So tell us a little bit about your company and how you just got the Lisa Hughes Group established.
Well, I had a team over at Remax and just decided that I had come to a point in my career, having been doing this for 17 years, that just seemed like a natural transition to go out on my own and have my own firm.
That's a brave thing to do. That's pretty cool.
It is. It's been a good thing. So went out on my own, like you were saying earlier, just recently got married and
yep, congratulations.
Thank you. And my husband is actually getting ready to come in the business with me. So that's pretty exciting.
Yep. Well, my wife's in the business too. So it's actually fun to work with your spouse. Hopefully it doesn't ruin your relationship, right?
I don't think so.
You don't think so. So my last question, so that our listeners can kind of get a flavor for how you operate and who you are as a realtor, is what do you like most about being a realtor?
Helping people, making sure that their best interest is taken care of. I started out when I got into this industry in new construction, and I've been a builder rep for a few different builders, and then I've been on this side as well. And so it's been great to be able to see kind of the business as a whole and the importance that buyers, whether they're buying new construction, whether they're buying resale, whether they're buying a foreclosure, pre-foreclosure, that
short sale, you name it. Yeah,
exactly, that they are taken care of. And people, with the information that's online, a lot of times consumers think that they know more than what they really do, and they just need someone to guide them through the process. And it's pretty exciting for me to be able to be a part of that.
That's great. And I think people underestimate just how much knowledge you need to have to navigate each one of those that you listed, because a short sale is totally different from a foreclosure, which is totally different from new construction.
Absolutely.
So, and you're right, there is a lot of good information on the internet, but I mean, I have customers that will call me and say, well, I would like to do the North Carolina Down Payment Assistance Program on new construction, and then I also want to do a renovation loan, and I also want to do this kind of loan, and they start merging 6 different loan programs. And then like, no, I read it on the internet. I'm like, well, not really. We really can't. Yes, we can do A, B, but not C, D, E, and F. And that's what I'm the expert for, right? That's why I'm here. And the internet, like I said, is a good tool, but sometimes can misguide somebody in the fact that you just sometimes need that expert. So, well, Lisa, before we sort of really roll out our theme for the today, I really want to maybe have you set the stage for what's happening in real estate in Charlotte right now. What's your sort of perspective on the housing market?
Well, the housing market is absolutely wonderful here. And there's an upside and a downside to that. The upside is if you are a seller, you're in a great place to be. If you are a buyer, then it's very challenging. So many consumers are wanting to get in before the interest rates continue to climb, which is wonderful. But the problem that we're having is there is a large demand and not enough inventory. So what that facilitates.
That's basic economics right there.
Absolutely. The law of supply and demand. And the problem is that so many buyers are going after the same homes because of the lack of supply, that we're seeing so many multiple offers on homes. It's unbelievable. 39 out of the last 44 homes that I have sold have been in multiple offer situations.
39 out of 44. That's is correct. Huge.
It is.
And sometimes I wonder that, if buyers really understand that before they get in the car with you, and that's something, it's kind of an education process for them to figure that out.
I think that consumers have not quite gotten to the point until they've lost 2 or 3 houses now that they really grasp the concept that when we as realtors tell them, when you submit an offer, you've got to bring it. We're not in the market like we were a few years ago where you could come in and really negotiate and get closing cost or get this or that. I mean, you really have to bring it if you want to be the one to win the bid.
You got to bring it. I like that. Well, I've experienced pretty much the same thing in terms of working with buyers that will come and I'll get referred from you or another realtor and say, let's get these people ready to buy a home. And they don't want to go through the process of being pre-approved. And then they go to see a house and they end up getting frustrated because they do it time and time and time again, and they're not offering the right prices. They just don't understand. So I think we're seeing this across the board from my side and your side, that the marketplace is still very hot in Charlotte. And if there are other areas of the country that are hot right now, but there are plenty of areas that aren't. So we're lucky, like you said earlier, it's a good thing, right? We're in a place where people want to be. Charlotte is appreciating, at least it is right now. But sometimes the drawback is you're paying more, right, as the buyer, and you're competing. So this really kind of rolls us into our theme today, which is really how do you win that bid in a multiple bid or a hot market like we're in today. So we're really going to be talking about those things in detail, so our listeners hopefully can gain some knowledge from us. So let's jump into component number 1 before we've got about 2 minutes before our next break, which you had mentioned, Lisa, was the financing in terms of pre-qualified versus being pre-approved. So
Correct.
From a realtor's perspective, what's the difference?
Well, first of all, from a listing agent standpoint, that's receiving those multiple offers, they're looking at, is it a cash purchase? Is it someone who's been pre-approved or pre-qualified? And the difference between the pre-qualification and the pre-approval is that buyer has taken those steps necessary to start providing their documents to their lender, so that when we have a conversation with the lender is able to say, yes, we not only have done a tri-merge credit report, but we also have seen their documents. So we're not going off what they're stating their income is, we've been able to verify what their income is.
Right. And I always say, she always looks cute on the other side of a dark dance floor. But when you get close and you start dancing, then you know, right? Exactly. She's been pre-approved. And you can use that for any analogy you want. But I think that's really critical. And I think a lot of buyers underestimate that, oh, well, no, I talked to a lender and I'm pre-approved. And you and I both have to ask the question that, well, did you provide your documentation? Well, no, I didn't give them anything yet. Well, then you weren't pre-approved. Mm-hmm. You were just pre-qualified. And with people living crazy lives today, like we have, tax bills that are due in arrears coming out of your paycheck, and child support and alimony and student loan debt that maybe you're only paying $50 a month on, that the lender's going to have to count 1% of the balance, which may be $500 a month. There's so many components to the loan process that you may find out after you've written an offer, gone shopping and all that your loan might not qualify once the underwriter actually looks at the details, looks at the pay stubs, looks at the tax returns, and maybe finds an old Mary Kay business or some business that somebody had that was taking a loss each and every month that dropped your income down. So we've seen it all. So like you said, step number one really here in a hot market trying to win the bid is make sure that you call and get yourself pre-approved, not just pre-qualified, have your stuff go through underwriting. The best part about that is my team over at Movement Mortgage, we will do that for you free of charge. Doesn't cost you anything to be pre-approved. Not all lenders do that. So if you do have a quick question, you want to get pre-qualified, my number is 704-277-4463. That's 704-277-4463. So we've got quite a few more steps to talk about winning a bid in a hot market. So please stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Did you know it has been reported that an estimated 80% of Americans have credit inaccuracies on their credit reports? Most people that have either inaccuracies or existing items that can be negotiated or adjusted do not know what their best score could be until they have found a new home or buying a new car or applying for a credit card. Then it's too late and they have to accept a higher interest rate or lose the opportunity altogether. The time to work on improving your credit score is before you need it. Whether you have a 440, 640, or even a 740 FICO score, there is always room for improvement. The National Credit Care Team is comprised of individuals dedicated to helping the millions of consumers plagued by credit inaccuracies, errors, and fraud. It is our mission to help inform consumers and alleviate the stress of working with creditors and credit bureaus. Together, we can maximize your scores to get the best interest rates possible and save you money. Call now, 303-747-6390. That's 303-747-6390. Or visit us at www.nationalcreditcare.com.
Welcome back to Reshair Radio. I'm your show host, Chris Reshatar, licensed loan officer with Movement Mortgage. We are back for another segment. We have been talking here with Lisa Hughes-Skipper from the Lisa Hughes Group. And Lisa and I really sort of planned this show around helping our buyers today, or future buyers, because hopefully some people will give us a call, but helping our buyers understand that the Charlotte market is super hot and what we can do to help them win bids in a multiple bid situation when they're offering on a home, when there are other buyers trying to buy the same property. Lisa, you had mentioned step number one, the most critical piece was probably getting your loan underwritten, approved, or pre-approved up front. And we kind of went through that one already. And thank you for your counsel on that. So let's talk a little bit about, when a buyer puts an offer in to buy a home and there are several people, normally a letter accompanies that offer, right? So you're going to submit an offer to purchase, which says the price and all the components of the offer, but then you usually would submit that offer with a letter from the lender that not only says they're pre-approved, but it's going to detail the kind of loan program that buyer is going to apply for. So how does the type of financing impact, maybe if you're representing the seller, the decision on whether or not you go with one of those offers?
Well, kind of what the financial position that the buyer may be in. You have very limited information about a buyer when they submit an offer. So you have to kind of take into consideration what kind of financing, is it that they're doing conventional? So maybe they're putting 10% down, which tells us that that person is probably in a very solid financial position.
They've got some skin in the game.
Exactly. Or FHA, where maybe they're only putting down 3.5%, and VA, where they're doing 100% financing. So you look at the type of financing. We look at, are they asking for closing costs? That's going to kind of give you a good indication about the kind of financial position that maybe they're in.
Right, exactly. So the type of financing, believe it or not, can play a role. I can't say that it's always going to be a deciding factor, but sometimes even a conventional loan with more money down may end up being the winner of the bid if all the bids are around the same price, because the seller may feel more comfortable with that person's financial or perceived financial strength because they're doing more down. So it is important to think about, depending on the loan program that you are applying for when you are doing that we may strategize around, if you're working with Team Reshatar, we may strategize around which program may be perceived as the strongest if you're in a multiple bid situation. So that's a great component to be thinking about when winning a bid in a hot market. So very good. So let's go to component number 3, which is as is versus maybe an offer with repair. So what does that look like? And let's talk about that one, Lisa.
Well, unless an offer specifies that they are offering it in as-is condition, then the seller has to assume that when they have their home inspections that they're probably going to ask for some repairs to be made. That could result in out-of-pocket costs for the seller. And this is going back just a little bit to the topic number 2, the kind of financing. So many offers now are way above list price, so we're having to take into consideration the type of financing, the appraisal situation that goes on into that. So let's just say that somebody is offering $15,000 more than list price, but we can see that they're probably going to be asking for repairs to be made. Maybe they need some closing costs. Maybe they're doing FHA financing, which has a little bit stricter guidelines for appraisal than what a conventional appraisal has.
Yep.
So, you're kind of looking at that big picture.
Right. So is the offer kind of which one's cleaner? Sometimes
Exactly.
you're looking at, hey, this one's got a lot more components that we have to sort of pay attention to, whereas this one maybe over here looks just pretty straightforward and clean. So that makes a lot of sense. And we don't see a lot of offers coming in today saying we need repairs right out of the gate, but it all kind of goes into that mix of which one's going to be the best offer. So, all right. And you briefly mentioned closing costs. That's component number 4 in terms of how to win a bid in a hot market here, closing costs. So normally when an offer is placed from the buyer to the selling party and the listing agent, we call that, there's a section on the contract where it says that we are requesting the seller to pay, and then there's a little box that you can fill in and put a percentage or a dollar amount. So would you say that asking for closing costs is something that can impact a seller's decision today?
Absolutely. If you were dealing with multiple offers and somebody is asking for closing costs and another person is not, and especially with the number of offers that we're seeing over list price, let's just say hypothetically that a house is listed at $200,000 and you've got 15 offers, and one of those offers is asking for $5,000 in closing cost, and they're offering $15,000, over list price. Okay, well, is that person going to have those closing costs in order to be able to close? So if the house comes in and say it appraises at $210,000, does the buyer have the extra $5,000 to bring in the difference in the appraisal value versus the sales price? And B, do they also have the money to bring their closing costs to the table? So the seller's having to look at the big picture whenever they're considering all the offers.
Sounds crazy, but people think real estate is just putting a sign in the yard and saying, give me a call and put the offer in. But there's a lot of components that really goes into sort of crafting what's going to be best for the seller. Because you're in our example here that we're using, it's all about how the seller analyzes what you present, right?
Yes.
And what they perceive is going to be in their best interest because they have a lot of people to choose from, right? So very good. So closing costs can have an impact. And I think at the end of the day too, like you said, if it didn't appraise and they were asking for closing costs, it may be that deal may fall apart if we have to lower the price and give up the closing costs. Makes that seller can make the seller nervous. All right, let's talk a little bit about timing. So there is another section of the offer where you would put maybe a projected closing date, how long the buyer is requesting to close. How would you normally work with that? Let's just say if you're representing the buyer and you've got multiple offers.
Well, I would email the listing agent and say, for example, you're going to want to put in the offer to close as quickly as possible because sellers tend to like the idea of closing sooner as opposed to later.
Sure.
Now, that having been said, I would put in an email to the agent when I submitted the offer to make sure that agent knows that my client is flexible with their timing. So they're happy to work with the time frame, whatever is most convenient for the seller. When you're in multiple offer situation, you want to make your offer as clean as possible and you want it as accommodating to the seller as it can be.
Yeah, and I mean, just 5-6 years ago, it was the opposite. You know? It's like whatever the buyer wants, we'll do.
Yeah,
Just
very different.
Buy our house, 2010, right?
Yeah.
But it's a different game. So timing can play a part in that. And believe it or not, that timing actually can be impacted by the lender that you choose. So I know at Movement Mortgage, we have a very streamlined loan process. And I definitely have a lot of agents that will use our services because they know they need they need a lender that, depending, we're going into multiple bid situation, they want to work with a lender that can close quickly because it may make that offer look better. So, and this is not a dig on any other company. There are plenty of other lenders that close quickly, but we are one of them in town that is well known for that. So let's talk about the next piece. So the amount, actually, I'm going to kind of slide in and say, what about price?
Okay, so that brings on a whole nother topic.
It does. So does the highest bidder always win?
No.
There you go.
I just had one that was on the market less than 48 hours, and we had to put a deadline on offers, and we ended up in less than 48 hours with 19 offers.
19. Holy moly.
Yes. And my clients decided not to accept the highest offer because of all the terms that were involved. They chose to take one that was well over $11,000 over list price.
Okay.
But it was all cash. They agreed not to even have an appraisal.
It was clean.
It was clean. They agreed to buy it in as-is condition. So it was completely clean. So, some people say, well, that's buyer beware. Well, to some degree it is, but not necessarily, because you have a due diligence period that will protect you. Yes, the buyer's going to lose their due diligence money, but that's their out if they decide they have the inspections and they don't like the outcome of the inspections. But in the meantime, they got the contract. It can be their house if they want it to be.
Sure. Well, if you're just tuning in, you are listening to Chris Reshatar with Reshair Radio and our guest, Lisa Hughes-Skipper. And we're talking about how to win a bid in a hot market, which is the market we're in. So price doesn't always win. And it's been interesting that I've experienced that, having spoken with agents that are listing the property, because I talk with them occasionally about, how to help my buyers win the bid. And they will say things like, yeah, yours wasn't the highest offer, but we chose your offer over other factors, and your client won the bid. And we get excited. Obviously, anything I can do to help my client win the bid, even though I'm the mortgage lenders, I will do whatever it takes. So let's kind of keep rolling here. I think the next one on this is sort of the amount of money that they contribute in their due diligence. It's called a due diligence fee. It's really, I don't know how you describe that, but I call it as, this is your good faith money that says the seller's willing to take their house off the market for, let's just say 20 days, but you're going to have to give them some money to do it. Should you decide to move forward, then it gets credited towards your costs. If you don't, then the seller has some compensation. So you're saying to me that sometimes the amount that buyer is willing to put up can influence the offer.
Yes. And it's interesting. You call it a good faith deposit. the good faith deposit is actually the earnest money deposit. The due diligence, I call it an inconvenience fee because
There you go.
because basically you're paying the seller, and it's a check made payable directly to the seller. They cash it. It's done. You don't get it back no matter what. But it's basically, it's an inconvenience for you to take your house off the market in case I decide for some reason I don't want to buy it. Then, yes, I lose my money, but you've lost that time that your house could have
been sold to somebody else.
Absolutely.
That's right. Perfect. So, and I've seen that too, where, we may see due diligence fees at $200, $500, $700. I've seen some of my buyers put up $2,000 and $3,000, which is not that common for a house at $150,000, $200,000, because they're trying to make their offer stand out, right?
Yeah, they're showing that they've got skin in the game.
Right. So we're so positive we want to buy this home. We're willing to put a lot of money up front, and knowing that if we don't buy it, the seller gets to keep it. Interesting, right? So before we sort of roll into the next step in terms of how to win a bid in this hot Charlotte market, we probably need to take a quick break here. So we're going to come back in just a minute here. Again, we're here with Lisa Hughes-Skipper from the Lisa Hughes Group. And we're talking about how to win a bid in this hot market. And we're going through a bunch of those components. So if you have heard anything that you're interested in and you need to talk to me or to Lisa, all you need to do is text me and say, Chris, I need Lisa. I need you to help me buy a home. And I'd be happy to get back to you at the beginning of the week. My number is 704-277-4463. That's 704-277-4463. So please stay tuned. We'll be right back for our very last segment of Reshair. This is Chris Reshatar, your host of Reshair Radio. As a mortgage professional, we interact with several industry-related professionals, and we see the good, the bad, and the ugly. When I have a choice to select a closing attorney either to purchase or do a refinance, I choose John Ringer with Hutchins Law Firm. He is a legal professional and he covers commercial and residential transactions. More than just a closing attorney, John wants to be your attorney for life. He can provide you insights you need to make accurate and informed legal decisions. As a Charlotte native, John has witnessed the tremendous growth and development of our city and region. As a part of Hutchins Law Firm with more than a quarter century of experience and 400 years of collective combined legal experience, they have what you're looking for. They have offices in Charlotte, Fayetteville, Wilmington, and Columbia, South Carolina. Please give John a call if you need an attorney, the right attorney, at 980-275-9810. That's 980-275-9810. Welcome back to Reshair Radio. I'm your show host, Chris Reshatar, licensed loan officer with Movement Mortgage. If you have not listened to Reshair Radio before, our show really is about empowering and exciting Charlotte teens to make sound financial decisions. And we do that by bringing in expert contributors and local guests in our Charlotte marketplace to help bring hot topics to you and helping you learn and get smart each and every week. And this morning, we're really talking about Charlotte's hot marketplace and how to win a bid in a multiple bid situation. We're here with Lisa Hughes-Skipper. Lisa, so we were just right before the break, and we were talking about earnest money and due diligence and sort of upfront contributions when you go under contract. But I'd like to have you introduce the concept of helping a buyer today personalize their offer and what that means and what strategies that they would employ in order to personalize that offer and maybe make their offer stand out.
Well, as you know, Chris, a home purchase is a very emotional decision. And it's emotional for the buyer and it's emotional for the seller.
Sometimes for us too.
Yeah. But, for a buyer, if you've got two offers that are very close to the same thing, and the buyers are not allowed to know what the other offers are. So the seller's looking at over their offers that they have to choose from. And if there's two that are very close, did one person write them a personal letter or send them a video of what their individual situation is and what their home would mean to them? And I have had my clients to win a bid that maybe they weren't they're very close, but maybe they weren't quite as high as the highest offer. But the emotions of the letter that they wrote and how they wanted to raise their children in that home, and how much they wanted their children to go to this particular school and why that was. And it just so happened that we didn't know it, but the seller had raised her children in that home, and her husband had passed away, and it was very emotional for her to sell. So
they were able to connect with the seller without necessarily knowing that seller.
Absolutely. And so it really can mean the difference in whether or not a person wins the bid.
Wow. So I will share briefly a story of my own. When I live in the Ballantyne area of Charlotte, and a few years back we had a home, and it was a pretty hot market when we were selling. We were the only house in the whole neighborhood for sale, and the offers were flying in. And sure enough, we got a personal letter from one of the offers that it was on the high end of the bids, but it was very clear that they had lost 3 or 4 other homes. They were, trying to buy a home. They needed a home for their family to move into, didn't have a house, and noticed that my boys were into baseball, and that the guy happened to be an avid baseball card collector. So he said, I collect baseball cards, and I'd be happy to, share some of my collection with your boys if they'd like to have a baseball card, and just really connected with who we were as a family and really pleaded his case. And it was really kind of cool, because you didn't feel like you were just making a business decision. You felt like you were helping another family achieve their goal and their dream of owning our home that we had a lot of pride in. So it can really make a big difference, like you said. So that's my personal experience with personalizing the offer. So we've got a couple of more components here to touch base. So let's talk a little bit about, you're in a multiple bid situation. Lisa, you're representing the seller. The question I have is, does sometimes the reputation of the lender or the loan officer influence your decision when you're looking at the offers coming in?
Absolutely. If you are looking at the pre-approval letters or pre-qualification letters, and you see that you've got some that are from lenders that are just, unfortunately notorious for not closing on time, or coming in with low appraisals, then you have to advise your client of that. We have that fiduciary obligation to our clients to make them aware. When it's a lender, and Movement is a lender that has this reputation of being great about getting people underwritten on the front end.
Sure.
So that removes that concern of, okay, well, maybe they're pre-qualified, but you get down the road and now they don't qualify. And why didn't we know that earlier?
Up front, right? Yeah, that can make an impact on the decision. And at the end of the day, my job as the host of Reshair Radio is to counsel and guide people the best that I can. And there are a lot of great lenders in Charlotte, so we are not trying to kibosh any other lender in town. But we're trying to educate you that sometimes your lender's reputation, whether it's Movement or someone else, can be a deciding factor on a bid. So that's just really, it's an education that we're sharing with everyone today. As your host, I'm not trying to keep everything equal here, but sometimes that can make a difference. And personally, I will tell our listeners here today that when I know there's a multiple bid offer and my customer has been through that underwriting process, I actually pick up the phone and I call listing agents and I try to let them know, hey, I know you're just looking at my customer's letter on a piece of paper, but let me remind you that they actually have been through underwriting. They're positioned to buy. If you have any questions about something generic that I'm allowed to share with you, then I'm happy to do that. I can't share specifics about my buyer to the listing agent or sellers, but we can give general undertones to let them know how prepared they are to buy a home. And sometimes that can help tip the scale for my buyer and your buyer at the same time. Mm-hmm. So we're doing whatever we can. You can see it's a real team effort working with Lisa Hughes Group and our team Reshair here, getting buyers into homes. But these little things can make a difference in the end. So I think we're going to head to our last component here, Lisa, which is the realtor reputation. So what's your experience been with that?
Well, if if we have offers that the reputation of the realtor that is presenting the offer is that they have been in the business a long time and they're very good at what they do and they're very knowledgeable, very reputable.
Much like your favorite restaurant, right?
Well, exactly. I mean, there's really no difference.
Right. You're kind of going to lean toward going to your favorite restaurant than maybe something unknown.
Exactly. And if it's someone that that is not the easiest to work with, then it's going to be more challenging. And you may very well not even know
the agents at
realtors
all.
exactly that are presenting the offers. And it's kind of interesting. This last multiple offer that I had several realtors that reached out to me after another offer had been accepted, asking, well, what could we have done
differently?
And
that's really interesting.
Yeah. And so, as an agent that has been doing this for a long time, basically what that says to me is, well, apparently either that's, an agent that doesn't do a lot of business or hasn't been working in the market and presenting so many offers that they really understand, because those were some of the lower offers. And out of 19 offers, we only had one as low as list price.
Right. Right. So if you're offering list price in that scenario, you were already out because
exactly.
everyone else offered over. So out of the 19, they want one, right?
Yeah.
So you're down to 18. So, but that's a lot of work. And you begin to see here as we're sharing with you this topic today that there's a lot of factors that go into, identifying what is that seller and listing agent really looking for in order for your bid to be accepted if you're getting ready to buy a home. So I think we've really kind of hit our list. We really went through 10 components here today on how to win a multiple bid in a hot market like Charlotte's market. So I'm just going to do a brief plug here, Lisa, before we've just got a couple of minutes before the end of our show. Many of you have heard us talk about the North Carolina Down Payment Assistance Program that's offered through North Carolina Housing. And right now they have a first-time buyer program that's eligible for our local market in Cabarrus and Mecklenburg County. There are 3 other counties, but the ones in our area are Cabarrus and Mecklenburg, where they're offering first-time buyers an opportunity to use $15,000 towards their down payment and closing costs. It's not a percentage of. If you qualify for that program, you get $15,000. The money that the state gives you is forgiven over 5 years. So as long as you maintain that residence, your primary residence, for the first 5 years, you don't have to pay any of the $15,000 back. But if you know anybody that could use $15,000 of free money from the state to buy a home, now is the time to call. There are limited reservations. As of last week, there were about 1,200 reservations left, and those numbers are dwindling quickly. It may only be available for a number of weeks or months. So customer needs to have a 640 credit score, and depending on their income level, the income limit, max income that the household can make is anywhere from $67,000 to $77,000, depending on the number of family members in the household. So Lisa, I know that you and I have seen many of these programs coming through. It's been pretty hot over the last few months, but we're looking for buyers wanted. I've always liked that Volkswagen ad where they say drivers wanted. In this case, we're going to convert that to buyers wanted, right? So Lisa, it's been great to have you on the show again. Briefly, if you wouldn't mind, just share with our listeners how to best contact you if they are looking to either sell their home or maybe use you on the buy side.
Sure. You can call me at 704-363-8929, or you can visit my website at lisahughesgroup.com.
Perfect. And in my case, if you need to get pre-approved, not just pre-qualified, right, Lisa?
Right.
But pre-approved, we'll do that free pre-approval for you up front, so you can win that multiple bid potentially. Can't guarantee it, but my number is 704-277-4463. That's 704-277-4463. I can be found on the web, the radio show, that is, at reshairmedia.com, or you can actually do an online mortgage application at themortgagegenius.com. That's 3 words, themortgagegenius.com. So thank you for listening to Reshair Radio another week. We'll be back next week with another great show. And just really glad to have you here on the show in the studio again, Lisa, and appreciate your business as always over the years.
Thank you.
We hope everybody has a great week. Signing off from Reshair Radio. This is Chris Reshatar, your host of Reshair Radio. As a mortgage professional, we interact with several industry-related professionals, and we see the good, the bad, and the ugly. When I have a choice to select a closing attorney either to purchase or do a refinance, I choose John Ringer with Hutchins Law Firm. He is a legal professional and he covers commercial and residential transactions. More than just a closing attorney, John wants to be your attorney for life. He can provide you insights you need to make accurate and informed legal decisions. As a Charlotte native, John has witnessed the tremendous growth and development of our city and region. As a part of Hutchins Law Firm with more than a quarter century of experience and 400 years of collective combined legal experience, they have what you're looking for. They have offices in Charlotte, Fayetteville, Wilmington, and Columbia, South Carolina. Please give John a call if you need an attorney, the right attorney, at 980-275-9810. That's 980-275-9810.
You've been listening to Reshair with Chris Reshatar, a seasoned licensed mortgage consultant with Movement Mortgage, equal housing lender. Originator license number 117266. Learn more online at themortgagegenius.com.